All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Games and Stuff. uh, I'm Alan. That's what we were going to say. Next.
And I'm Greg. We should have made it so you say, and welcome to games, and then I go, and stuff.
Oh, for the next episode. That's so good. Wait, let's practice real quick. Welcome to Games.
And stuff.
Where I'm Alan.
And I'm Greg.
Just two childhood best friends wanting to podcast about our passions. And why is it called Games and Stuff, Greg?
Well, we certainly like to play games and talk about stuff, so we thought we'd bring that to you.
Yes, you'll hear all kinds of content from video games to sports, culture, the economy, kids, AI, etc. Hence, games.
And stuff.
Okay, first episode. So, Greg and I have been compiling a list of ideas to talk about and podcast about, and this one seemed like a good way to try to like summarize and chunk everything, like the major themes, up into a first episode. And then what we were thinking is we'll probably end up breaking down a lot of these in future episodes.
Yeah, really broad, much more specific, and
Yeah.
probably important to preface that we are by no means experts. There will be wrong dates, wrong numbers, and just flat out false information, but we are doing our best.
We are doing our best. But I will say this. We do have handy dandy a Google.
Yes.
So we will do our best to get you the right information. And that is why the first bit here, we'll scroll down for you, is topics: the wild ride from Pong to now. So we kind of ballparked Pong as just a word to summarize like 1975 or so, but that also includes all these other hits. So Pong, there was Pac-Man, there was Tetris. This is like in a 10-year period around that time. There was Asteroid, Space Invaders.
Yeah, we want to be more like mainstream, not like the first technical made in my garage like console.
Right.
But most people are aware at least of some of those, especially Tetris.
Yeah. Most people are familiar with like playing those. What are they? Were they 16-bit? These were 8-bit.
No,
or?
it'd be probably earlier than 8-bit. I think the first Nintendo was 8-bit.
Was Pong an 8-bit game? The 8-bit era begins in 1983. Okay. Interesting. Was Pong a 4-bit game?
Yeah.
Yes, Pong is considered a 4-bit game, meaning it used a very limited number of bits to process its graphics and gameplay, making it one of the earliest and simplest video games with basic visuals and mechanics. Well, that makes sense. So you basically need 4 bits to process the graphics and gameplay of two.
It's probably 4 bits for the paddle and then 1 for the ball.
Yeah. And that was it.
Yeah, future, man.
Wow. So we're talking like that was really the seed in many ways. I mean, you were like this machine over here.
You know, start getting like the cabinets.
Yeah, right.
And old school arcades.
Yep. That era was like the seed, and it's crazy because we're going to talk about from that until 2025. And, 2025 has these insane open world photorealistic RPGs of tons of quests, tons of side quests. You can make relationships with NPCs. You can choose options that change the story in the direction of light or change the story in the direction of dark. It's
cool. I thought it'd be cool to look back at how much they've grown in the last 50 years, and then maybe we could even project what's the next 50
Yes.
going to look like? Could it possibly change more? Or
Yes.
what direction would it go?
Yeah, we have that as something down here we'll talk about. Oh, I don't want to spoil our surprise.
The end stuff.
Yeah, the end stuff. Oh, we'll talk about AI, procedural generation, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, the future of games is a whole nother epic episode. So you called these cabinets. Cabinets is a good way to call these. So basically from cabinets to then the cabinets were evolved into the living rooms.
From cabinets to consoles.
Cabinets to consoles, yep.
And those early consoles only playing a game or two to the first true cartridge ones, and
right.
Kind of that part of it's gone on till now. Almost
Like
40 years.
Imagine that though, that the consoles that you would buy would only have the game or two, and then eventually, because we can't even fathom that in the digital era.
Well, we probably think of like, hey, I'm going to play Pong. You probably think that back then they probably think the console, because the console and the game is the same thing. Whereas now, you just say I'm playing this game or this game. But yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, it's
right.
Weird to think.
Because you would use the console name as a way of describing of which game you were playing. Whereas now you just say what game you're playing because of the cartridge era and the digital disc era and then the digital era.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because the console went into the living room, let's actually look that up. When did consoles enter the living room? Consoles began to enter the living room with the release of the Atari 2600 in 1977. And the Magnavox Odyssey was really before that. We talked about that too before we started. 1972.
Yep.
So, but the popularization of it was probably the Nintendo?
Yeah, it's got to be
right.
Bringing Nintendo in.
What was that one? The Nintendo?
Just the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES.
NES, right. Entertainment System.
To go from making cards and toys to becoming the dominant video game platform.
So they were cards and toys before. 150 million Switches. We looked that up. Switch consoles. So from cards and toys to 150 million Switch consoles.
Yeah. But the nice thing is they're still the ones that are mixing it up. Xbox and PlayStation they're at the point where it's just becoming one console, with how similar they are. Same amount of buttons on the controller for the most part. Games look the same. Nintendo's the only one that's still trying other stuff. So
right. Like the fact that the Switch is portable from its dock. Like there's that.
Because the last console that was kind of doing what the other ones was the GameCube, and even then they had the different disc, and then from then on it's been the Wii U, and on the Switch. Well,
we have some of the subjects we'll talk about is also how when consoles evolved, they also have an evolution into we had the handheld evolution. We had the virtual. Now we have the virtual reality evolution. So we'll talk about that.
I think when that becomes affordable, it'll be a true evolution.
Right.
Right now, it's just too darn expensive for the high end ones, I guess. I should say.
Right. So this was around 1983. So we just jumped basically 10 years or so. So around 75, really the seed is, let's say, planted and starting to grow. But then around 85, let's say, the console starts entering the living room very popularly. Because how many total NES consoles were sold? Oh, I got to switch scene. There we go. 62 million units sold.
Oof.
So that's how many PlayStation 5s have been sold, or so, ballpark.
Yeah, but you also got to think of percentage of gamers back then.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
that number.
super true.
So that's probably
right.
you know, 80-90% of gamers are playing that one console.
Right. Yeah, the when I was asking various AI LLMs about our outline, one of the replies back was that that the association to gaming used to be much more of a nerdy or geeky thing, like in '85 and stuff, versus now. Do you think that that's changed significantly, like in 25?
Well, I think it's just because back then it was probably such a technological thing, you know, like they were so limited that it probably was like kind of appealing to a certain kind of person, just because, you know, not to spoil our later info, but there's games for everyone, you know, like anyone can find a game that they want to play, and that just wasn't possible then. So it probably was like, I'm, you know, I like Mario, I like Zelda, and it's probably like just those kind of people. And if that doesn't appeal to you, then it's not like today where everyone's like COD and GTA and everything.
So you're saying that the Cambrian explosion of game categories and possibilities played into the attracting of more people into the video game industry. So therefore the word geeky or nerdy became less.
And maybe that is just stereotyping, but yeah, like I even think of like today, even though you have it on our later bit, but like people probably don't consider themselves like gamers anymore, just because everyone
is a gamer in a way.
One in some way. So
that is interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So we have that bit, you know, coming up here in a sec where we mentioned that there's 3.5 billion people or so identify as gamers, making it a top identity cluster around the world. But you're saying that even identifying as a gamer is kind of phasing out because almost everybody games to some extent.
Yeah, like
it's like being human or being a person now.
Yeah, it's like I'm sure if I were to ask my 61-year-old dad, do you consider yourself a gamer? He'd say no, but he sits on the couch and plays his Clash, whatever, and phone games. So, yeah. Right.
So when you're like on the subway or when you're doing transportation stuff and you whip out your phone and you're playing a game, you don't necessarily identify as a gamer, but you're playing a game.
Yeah.
So the amount of people that, you know, play games might even be higher than that amount.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we had this, let's pull up this tab. Yeah. So that was 1983. We had this proliferation. Well, in the US it was 1986. So, okay. And then the main games at that time, Super Mario Brothers, Zelda.
We're still on the NES. Yeah, so the first Zelda. Yep, first Metroid.
Oh, yeah.
You know, some of the big franchises still going today.
Major NES games.
Duck Hunt.
Yep, Super Mario Bros., Kirby's Adventure, Zelda. Duck Hunt, there it is. Yep, Dr. Mario.
I remember being blown away by a neighbor who had Duck Hunt.
Yep.
How does it work?
That one became very popular in arcades because you could use. Well, they sold the gun for home consoles too.
It worked. It's. Yeah, if you look at a video,
technology,
it's a cool.
Was like, how did it work?
It's a cool way when you look at like a breakdown of how Duck Hunt worked at home. But yeah.
Do you remember what the tech they used to make it align to this where you were pointing on the screen at that time?
It was almost akin to like taking a picture, and I can't speak intelligently enough about it, but yeah, it's the screen like flashes, and there's a way for the gun to get that specific.
Oh, it was maybe like it was a sensor on the gun itself, and the screen would flash.
And I think it had to be like a CRT TV to work and stuff, but yeah. So it was almost like taking a picture, I think.
Man, that was huge for immersion.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah. So that's one of this main point, mainstreamification of video game culture. So probably after the NES, would we just jump straight to the maybe
8-bit to 16-bit.
Let's check.
Super Nintendo?
Was NES 16-bit?
No, that was the SNES.
Oh, SNES. SNES was 16-bit. Okay, there it is. And the SNES was 1990 in Japan, and then North America 1991. Damn, these jumps are, they're big jumps, but at the time, 4 to 8 to 16.
Well, it's funny because it's like, with how big and how long gaming generations are now, it takes 8+ years for a new console to come out. Now there's, mid-gen upgrades. Whereas back then, you're having this massive advance in technology in 4 years, in 5 years. Like, graphics doubled from this console to this console, and it only took a couple of years.
Right.
And now it's like people are still sticking on the PS4. It's
right.
Like,
your PS4 is chugging along at many of the main games that the PS5 is
still coming out.
That's a good point. So you're saying back in the day, a double in graphics and processing took maybe like 5 years.
A console generation used to be like 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Yeah, and then
it would be a significant improvement.
Yeah.
So SNES main games.
And this is where, even with how old it is, I mean, the SNES predates both of us still, but you still have arguments that the Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past is the greatest game of all time, or that Super Metroid is one of the great games of all time, and they came out back then. Mario's grown so much since then, but like, you still have hardcore defenders that is the best of all time, and here we are 30 years later.
Well, that's also that plays deeply into the idea of whatever seeds a technological shift or a cultural or artistic shift. Sometimes people will align with what initially seeded it and say that was the best of that art that was made. And or like in music, people
yeah, it's very personal, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I mean, even just because of the art of the 16-bit era, it still like holds up. It still like looks nice on old TV like that. So it's just kind of like a perfect capture of technology and art kind of marrying together. Whereas trying to play NES games now or see what it looks like, it looks so old.
Holy cow.
That was my first console, SNES.
Yep. Man, I played this all the time. I didn't own it, but I played it all the time.
It's funny, I never had any of like the greats for it. I never had any Mario games. And I didn't have Zelda. I remember being blown away by Terminator 2, the video game. Final Fantasy. Yeah.
Yep, Super Mario World. Oh, Punch-Out! Aladdin! Oh my gosh!
Aladdin, that was one of the big first ones for like across different consoles. It looked so much different because make me look dumb. But what was the main competitor of the SNES? Sega.
Sega Dreamcast?
No, Dreamcast would be the next generation. But
Sega. Pre-Dreamcast. What was it?
But like Aladdin looks so much better on the Sega than it does on the Super Nintendo, and you'd have certain games that were drastically different from console to console.
Oh, the 32X, maybe Saturn.
Yeah, then probably the Saturn.
1994. So yep, Sega Saturn.
Yep.
Oh, this was the Sega I owned. Yep.
Plus, one of the cool things too, just on the note of Aladdin, was that I think Disney artists helped design it, so it looked so good because the guys that actually made the movie helped make the game, so they really got it to look nice.
So this was This was a big jump though, because this isn't this a 30. This a 32-bit, and the SNES was a 16.
Yeah, maybe there's one that predates.
But that's crazy. It was just a 3 year or so, and it went up double. And I remember when this was my first home console, and this was mind blowing. Yeah, this was mind blowing. But you had the SNES.
Had the SNES, but
Yeah.
none of the great games for it. I think the one I still have it somewhere. I somehow never lost it. Is I had some X-Men game that was. I remember just being so cool
Right.
because it tied into the cartoon at the time. It looked so good.
Yep.
But yeah,
My gosh. Yeah, the time spent just sitting in the living room on the carpet.
but I didn't play. Like I wouldn't have called myself a gamer back then on the SNES. It was just like it was on the TV in my parents' house, like
Mhm.
in their room. Like it wasn't even in the living room, and you just played for a little bit. It's like this is cool. It's when I fell to the dark side of being a gamer, it would be the next generation.
So that brings us to the PlayStation 1 generation. Is that right?
The Nintendo 64
Oh.
generation.
Is PlayStation 1 in the same Nintendo 64 gen? Probably, right? Yeah.
Those
and
would've
the
been the
Xbox
kind
One,
of-
right? The first one?
Nope, Xbox wouldn't come along until the PS2 and the GameCube.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So N64 is next. So N64 was a 64-bit?
I think you're on a roll here.
Holy cow. Okay, so it's 64-bit. And then when was the N64 release specs and date? Okay, 1996, and in America, same, yeah, 1996. Wow. It was discontinued just 6 years later? It's insane.
That's all
compared
it took.
Yeah.
You think of that in that time,
Right.
the switch to 3D games. And yeah, I just remember my dad, as cheap as he was back in the day, but he bought one early on, and like all the greats that came out so quickly for it.
He bought a 64?
He had a 64, and
Yeah.
it wasn't. We didn't get one at my mom's until years later. But yeah, just playing GoldenEye
Oh my gosh.
was such a
right.
mind blowing thing.
Right.
Or,
Perfect Dark
Um,
with Max and Drew. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So much. Oh my gosh.
Perfect Dark. I never got into.
Super
That
Mario
sounds sad.
Party. Oh my
I don't know
gosh.
about Mario Party, but
Mario-
Mario 64, being able to go in all directions, having an analog stick.
Yeah. With Robert and David and Max. So much
yeah.
Mario Party used to be that like that game where you could play so many mini games within the game. It was mind-blowing. Within the game was a proliferation of mini games.
I was my favorite Mario Party thing came from. I was a lifelong Game Informer fan, the magazine, and when Mario Party came out, they reviewed it because it was so like unfair. If you look at it like holistically, it's so unfair, it's so random that there's not really that much thought to it. But they gave it a bad review, and it was so scathing. Nintendo sent them a letter back, like thanking them for their time, and they hung it up in their office because they were so proud that they got a response.
So we're talking Mario Party 1 is a 1998. Okay. All right. So that's our ballpark timeline where we're at. We've moved 25 years.
Yes. We've not even haven't mentioned arguably another one of the greatest games of all time in Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah,
Zelda.
Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time. Also 1998. Yep.
That's what 98 is one of those. Is this the best year in gaming years? Like
Right.
I can't think of them all off the top of my head, but like
What
98,
games
2005,
Came
2012.
out in 1998.
I think Metal Gear came to Half-Life.
Oh my gosh, StarCraft 1, Metal Gear Solid, Half-Life, Baldur's Gate 1,
Fallout 2.
Legend of Zelda, Fallout 2. Wow. Sonic. Wow. That's an insane year.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So this is about 25 years into. We were 7 years old.
Yep.
We were little babies. having our first consoles. Well, your second console, basically.
Yep.
And this is still before the PlayStation 1 revolution, right?
Well, it's tough because you have I think it's the PlayStation, and that came out. That was where it had the disc, but it didn't have analog sticks on its controller.
Right.
And then the PS1 is technically an upgrade that included the analog sticks. But the genius of the PlayStation was, of course, switching to a disc, which made it so much easier for game developers to put stuff on, or people to put stuff on, because cartridges are so expensive. So the PlayStation's genius is making it so much easier for anyone to make a game for. Yeah.
So the cartridge to disc switch was a Sony PlayStation 1 catalyzed thing?
Yeah, I guess I can't say off the top of my head if it's the first disc console, but it's like the one that made it take off.
And because as a game developer, to source a cartridge and upload a game would be a nightmare versus a disc.
Well, it's expensive too.
Everyone was using CD players and
to have like your own proprietary cartridge. Then
so basically, what people were using with movies and music, they just added video games to the same CD. Yeah, because that's one of the key things we write here too, is that video games are now a larger industry than movies, music, and TV combined.
Yeah.
So that was a really huge moment then to slot in video games from cartridges to discs, which then mirrored the movie and music industry, which was, I mean, back then, everything was getting a CD for music. It was back then for your little Walkman or whatever you were using, or your home system, or your DVD player for movies, etc. So now being able to relatably make it so that developers could also make games on something that was like a common cultural format, if you will. Yeah.
Wow, that was huge. I think the N64 was still more powerful than like the PlayStation, but just the ease of use and accessibility of the PlayStation really made it take off.
Was the PlayStation 1 the first CD console? Every time I click 1, it switches to the first scene, so that's why it's coming up. Oh, the NECPC engine was using CD-ROMs, but I see what you mean. The standalone console, that used it was the first. Cool. Wow. So basically in 25 years, I would say I guess maybe the two main points in those 25 years, the first 25 years, are that, tell me if you agree, that the first main point is that somehow the doubling capacity of the processing was every 5 years or something like that.
Yep.
And then the second main point, which has changed a lot now as we've hit the Moore's Law sort of ender part of the curve, or whatever you want to say. But other innovations are happening. And then the second thing is probably that consoles entering the living rooms.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I want to say like becoming cheaper, but like also TVs entering more rooms, because when we were young, you might have
one
or two TVs that's in the living room, but now with the cheapness of screens,
right. Yeah, now you can have an abundance of screens that then allows you to, like, if you have multiple people living in the same household, you can easily have one that's watching TV shows in one space and one that's playing a video game in another space, that kind of thing. Yeah.
You have a whole arcade in your room.
Yeah, that is so interesting. 50 years ago, you would go to the arcade, and then 25 years ago, you would have a whole arcade in your living room.
Yeah.
And now, 25 years later, it's like just a Cambrian explosion of games and the technology that's there's a game for everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, we've touched on a good chunk of these first of these first points already. I think so many people don't know that this is true, that video games are a larger industry than movies, music, and TV. Combined is the important word there, too.
Well, I mean, you
crazy.
just think of just anything that you consider a game, from something running on your iPhone 4, if you still have one, to, a PlayStation 5 Pro or high-end PC. Like, just the sheer variety of, we can throw that on there, and, it's everyone has access to it, and everyone plays them, seemingly, if you have the tech.
Throws what on there?
Just throws any game. Like, it's just the ability to put games on any screen that you own.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, because you told me that you were playing Coder on your iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, what? You can just play a game like that on your iPad?
Play Resident Evil 8 on your iPad.
Right.
So, yeah.
Which came out like 2 years ago, didn't it?
Or Death Stranding.
You can play Death Stranding on your iPad?
There's a Death Stranding for iPad. Yeah.
Wow, that's a pretty intensive.
Everyone's favorite walking sim.
Yeah. But so, yeah, you're right. So now you can basically put a game on any of those tablets or phones also, and that's facilitated this industry's.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because whatever happened with, what were the big ones? Like Clash of Clans and Candy Crush and what was the Temple Runner thing?
Oh,
those
all
were
those
all
runners.
phone.
Flappy Birds, Angry Birds.
Angry Birds. Yeah, so all those
Jetpack
games, all those games birthed out
They're not even
supporting
they're skipping
the video.
consoles now.
Skipped consoles completely, and then birthed into the phone app ecosystem, but as a video game in the phone app ecosystem. So that played into the video game industry, but on phones now, and compared to, you used to have to do it on the PlayStation, and now you could also do it on the iPhone 4. Yeah. Wow, yeah, that actually played massively into the equation. We've had a couple of those mind blowers. Even our conversation, it helped remind me that I had the Sega Saturn growing up, and that I was playing.
I don't remember that.
Or the Sega Genesis, it was?
Oh, maybe it was Genesis, I think, is the one that we were trying to...
So...
I think that's the one we were trying to compare, was the Genesis.
Sega Saturn? Let's look that up first.
I think that's the SNES. True competitor.
Oh, versus... Yeah, I had the Genesis. Yep.
Where Sonic was born.
Okay, I see. So the timeline of this was... Genesis release. Okay, Genesis was released around 1989, and Saturn release was 1994-5. How many? Oh, interesting. So actually, the Sega Saturn was the second? It came after.
Yeah. Saturn would have been... I think that's just one of those... We made a bad bet going to 32-bit when Nintendo exploded up to 64-bit. And then Sega tried to play catch-up with the Dreamcast, and no more console.
Yeah, because my Genesis looked like this. That's what mine looked like. Not like that one. Maybe, is this the 32 gig? Or 32-bit? Gig. I don't know. But it looked like this one. Gosh, that's so... that was probably 1996, probably, something like that.
When you got it?
When I got it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even remember getting the SNES when I got it. It's just like, I had it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, unwrapping that first N64. It's a big one.
Ugh. Okay, we haven't even gotten to the freaking... Isn't the PS2 the... PS2 is the highest selling console, right?
Of all time?
Console? 160 million units.
The Wii.
Oh, the Nintendo Switch surpassed it.
So the Switch is now. I know the Wii was up there too because everyone had a Wii.
Oh, I got a Switch. Sorry.
But yeah, the PS2 eras were. I would say it's safe to say that's the modern era. Controllers still look the same ish.
Right.
You know, same number of buttons. 3D.
So PlayStation 2, let's look at the release date. Okay, so that was, 2, which is crazy because that was the whole Y2K thing. And
I remember I remember the Christmas that it came out, just wanting a PlayStation 1 so bad because my cousin had it, and I didn't get the idea of like backwards compatibility or like this is the new console, this is what you want. And just being like, Mom, I really want a PlayStation 1. And just begging for it, and her going to the store to buy one, and luckily the GameStop guy just goes, how about the PlayStation 2 instead, and buys that. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool, I guess. And it's like...
Well, you got blessed because you ended up getting a PS2.
Because I had a PS2, but all the games I had were PlayStation 1 games.
But backwards compatibility was huge.
But I also didn't have a PlayStation 1 memory card to save them on, so I couldn't ever save any of the
couldn't
games.
Save PS1 on PS2.
So I just remember playing Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and being like, I've got this far tonight. Awesome. Start over tomorrow.
You did those cycles.
It took a while before we got our first PS2 games. You needed to plug
in a PS1 memory card into the PS2 memory card slot to save a PS1 game.
Yep.
Look at that. All these little details of the evolution.
Yeah.
Okay, we can scroll to. Let's scroll to our next bit here. How games have evolved. Okay. Yeah, so right now we're talking about the consoles, the controllers. We've talked a little bit about the monitors and the TVs, the graphics capabilities. So around this time in 2000, we have PS2, GameCube, and Xbox.
And then Xbox comes in,
Yep.
And, well, I guess Dreamcast was the last. That was kind of another one of those, Dreamcast being between like a PS1 and PS2. But yeah, this is probably one of the first like true generations where you have like similar powered consoles.
Right.
All out by the big 3 developers today.
So would we be able to say that those are the 3 main? We use the word platforms where we wrote it, but Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, main platforms.
Yeah,
and then basically
and PC, of course, being its own thing.
Could we just lump PC as its own platform though?
Yeah, because there were so many games that were only on PC, or the version for PC was so much better. Like trying to play Half-Life on a PS2 or an Xbox is drastically different than a PC.
Or StarCraft,
which is impossible
to play on a console.
Yeah, the entire RTS genre was basically impossible.
Yep, we played Warcraft 2. 1998, I think, was Warcraft 2, and that was an obsession back in the day. Because one thing that started happening around that time, which was new. So that released 1995, but we probably started to really get into it around 1998 because it took a while we haven't even talked about internet. The fact that it used to be dial-up, and when somebody would call your home phone, they would break your internet connection.
Well, that's why it's also fair, I think, to call the PS2 era the first modern generation, because now you can hook your consoles up to the internet, So.
Oh, so PS2 first introduced the
Xbox, I think, was because Xbox and Xbox Live was the king.
Oh, right,
that was
right.
their
With Halo
big thing,
1.
especially Halo 1 wasn't online, but Halo 2.
Halo 2 was first
blowing
online.
It up, and then and it was all just in the box. I don't think you had to buy any edition, whereas like PlayStation, you had to buy a separate PlayStation Online thing to hook it up.
Right.
That was Xbox's first big punch. Was
everything
being
was
able to connect,
inclusive.
Yeah, and Xbox Live.
And Xbox Live, right.
And it was just so much better. And And it really took until the PS4 probably for Sony to catch up in terms of like their online services and systems. Yeah, Nintendo just doesn't seem to care. Yeah.
Well, does Nintendo even do multiplayer?
Well, yeah, of course you can play Mario Kart and all. You know, they have tons of online games, but it's just like for them, it's like why would they copy features of other brands when they're doing their own thing and they're so successful?
But what's their main Mario Kart?
Well, it's just yeah, probably Mario Kart. You know, Splatoon was made in mind to be online. Mario parties you can play, but it's just like the process of like even just adding a friend is so slow.
They're still back in PS2 era for that process.
Kind of. It's more it's not a focus of theirs compared to the other systems.
Right.
Even just voice chat's a pain in the butt.
So the one thing I wanted to say about this that made everything different was that this had the custom map editor. That's where things started to get different online.
Warcraft.
Yeah. So by Warcraft 2 having the custom map editor, it basically turned.
Dying.
You got water? Yeah.
Yep. It's gonna be a fit for a bit.
Okay. You can take a break, cough it up.
Maybe the Gatorade.
So the map editor made it so that you could create whatever you were envisioning as a custom map and then release that online in multiplayer for people to then play together. And if they liked it, then it would get more basically upvotes, which then created more people playing that.
Is that where Dota?
And then Warcraft 3.
That was okay.
Right? Warcraft 3 was a couple years later. That was 95. And then Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos was 2002. But the fact that it also, Warcraft 3 and its map editor birthed Dota and it birthed MOBAs, basically. It's insane to think about how much giving players the access to a map editor and letting it, because you and I have talked about that a lot, is letting the community begin to like mod, and then release those mods, which just became popular with like The Witcher. They had their, red kit.
Their mods. Yeah, you can do it on consoles now. Because that
Skyrim.
that was foreign to me because we didn't have a gaming computer. So, like, if I think of Warcraft, I think, top-down orcs versus humans. Like, you probably think of all the different online modes and custom things, whereas I had no idea about any of that.
Right, well, because we have different gaming experiences that also overlap and interplay. So, there's also comments about, Halo Reach also had the map editors.
Dying. Yeah, Halo Reach had great.
Map editor,
yeah, that was the last Bungie. And Halo.
Do you need me to grab you another water?
Nope, I'm just dying here on my own.
Do you have enough water, though? Should I get you?
I got plenty. I just got one of those specs that won't leave.
That won't leave, yeah. Classic. Spec that won't leave is like such a beautiful philosophical thing, too.
Is it?
But physiologically, it sucks. Drink a little more. See if it takes it down.
Trying to wash her down.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I think what you just said there also about Halo 2. So we did the map editor timeline, which was around the year 2000. This started to get more popular, which was really profound and fascinating through the early 2000s. But then when did Halo 2's multiplayer took the world?
Yes, Halo 2, and that's another one where like I wasn't in the moment able to. I just was excited for Halo 2 and playing split screen.
Yeah,
because we didn't have the internet for it.
Right.
It took us a while to get like Ethernet and Wi-Fi. But yeah, Halo 2 is the first time where it's just like it's simple. It's easy to connect. The Xbox Live service was its own thing. You didn't have to like try to figure out ways to connect with other people.
Right,
Like it was just you could add your friend. The headset came with it when you bought the little package, and it's like plug in and go. And
Yep.
yeah, just I wish I knew about and could do it in the moment. So it wasn't until 3 when I finally got it. But yeah. that was the first. Yeah, the Xbox, if you're gonna, I guess, really say the first modern console, like they got it figured out with
online.
having a hard drive, not having memory cards. Yeah.
Oh, right. Hard drive, no memory card was a big.
Yeah, it was just a PC that had its own interface.
Yeah.
It was because I think we had talked. The Xbox gets its name from DirectX. It could run DirectX.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
This was 2004, and then this.
I think 7th grade. We were at Edison Middle School. I remember.
Yeah.
Remember the day it came out and being so excited to just get home to play Halo 2.
Oh my gosh! And
Continue
just
the Chief story.
And this was also you could take 2 players online, but you could also split the screen in 4.
Yep, split screen.
In 4 to do your local, like.
Or you could just connect LAN.
Oh right, you bring a second console, second TV, etc. But the amount of time that we spent playing Halo 2 as a social activity was huge. And by the way, I just read a post that someone said, I think on Reddit, about how Halo 2 was such a pinnacle of multiplayer gaming that many of the modern, even we're talking 20 years later, many of them should still be reverting to Halo 2 multiplayer principles.
Yeah. I still wish, like, Destiny is, to use the Destiny games, being Bungie, if they just had, like, my biggest thing with not being able to connect with that is I would just wish that their multiplayer was just Halo. Just go around and find your gun instead of bringing your own with you. I mean, it's kind of part of it, but yeah, like, just classic Halo 2 and Halo 3. It's like they just nailed it.
Yep. Yeah, the feedback loop was so strong with Halo 2. Yeah. Okay, so we covered this is about 20 years ago. That's where we're at. So, and Greg, you just mentioned that the memory card started getting integrated into the consoles. That was massive.
GameCube, I can't remember. I just didn't play enough GameCube. We had one, but we were very late to the party. I think they had memory cards.
GameCube, I think, had memory cards. Yes. GameCube,
but they might not have either.
Memory cards? Question mark. GameCube features 2 memory card ports for saving game data.
Yeah.
And you prefaced our episode saying that there might be some incorrect information. We have Google.
Yeah,
we've been doing a good job.
Trying.
Yeah, Greg pulled the good old bottom of the ChatGPT. May occasionally give incorrect information or
winging it.
So, what else? Okay, you mentioned this earlier too. The controllers, you called this the modern era because one part of it was, integrated internet and like integrated online, integrated memory and storage, hard drives, and then controllers
becoming more similar because even Nintendo, even though it looked different, had triggers like the Xbox, like the PlayStation.
Right.
There had like the 2 buttons on the shoulders, the 4 face buttons.
Yep.
Even though the Xbox originally had 6 face buttons because they had the white and black button up there, and then they moved it down. All the consoles had 2 analogs. It's like the way of interacting with games all became the same. They all had thumbsticks. grip it, triggers, face buttons, D-pad of some kind, and it's still that way.
Do the list again on the controller. Thumbsticks.
Yeah, two analog
Triggers.
sticks.
Yep.
Some kind of like trigger, shoulder buttons, and
Right.
then your face buttons
Face buttons.
and D-pad of some kind.
Right, and D-pad.
Yeah,
So analogs, triggers, face buttons, D-pad.
and then your
Yeah.
starting settings or starting menu or whatever you want to call them.
And so that was
And that's what controllers still look like today.
they still look
Yeah.
like 20 years later.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then the origins and start of connecting to the internet and being global.
Right. And that's why you said modern era. So somewhere around 2005 or maybe something like that. Well, I want to talk briefly about PC stuff around that time too, because what was going on in PC world? Mouse and keyboard became,
It's a de facto, yeah.
and
it's
it
still-
became its, what'd you call it? A game controller. It's the interface to play with a game
Yeah.
was a controller or a keyboard and mouse. But keyboard and mouse became popular in like 80, right?
My family was so far behind on computers that I can't speak to it.
When did keyboard and mouse become popular? Computer keyboards became popular in the 1970s and computer mice became popular in the 1980s. Okay.
But games probably aren't really taking off until Windows becomes the popular interface.
Right. Yeah, so that's maybe 98 or something like that. So actually the PC gaming is closer to maybe like let's say 30 years old or something like that, the more mainstreamification of the PC gaming. So it's around the same time as sort of the console.
And even Apple, when they started making their computers, like the original Halo was originally going to be a Apple computer game, and then they just couldn't get it to work. It was going to be like an RTS. Like you can see it in the history of Halo things, but even Apple was kind of trying to come in there with our computer's stronger and plays these games, and didn't work out, but yeah.
So then, okay, so we're talking Windows played huge into the PC gaming boom.
As far as I know, this is I was never and still am not a PC gamer, so
Did Windows play a huge role in the PC gaming boom?
remember you could have games on floppy disks.
Oh, that's what I remember. Yes. Yeah. When I first started playing PC games, they were on floppy disks.
Were they?
Yes. Yes. That was when I was so young. I was so young. I don't even freaking 5. I don't know how young, 6. I don't know how young I was, but we would take that floppy and we would put it into one of those huge, I mean, they were huge back then, computers. The tower and the monitor, but it was so beautiful playing games that way. Like you had the floppy, you put it in the computer, and computers also had something to them that was more like they're used for like business and for all other life stuff too. So
Yeah.
there's something nice about that. Like your parents or the older generation was using computers to like access the internet and look at information and send each other emails and voice.
Instant message.
Instant
AOL.
message. Yep. IMs, DMs. That era was so. When was AOL Instant Messenger?
AIM.
Oh yeah, AIM. Thank you for that. 1997. Dude, that era was you would make your screen name and then you would chat on AIM while you would play Warcraft or whatever game you were playing, or you were surfing the internet and you were chatting on AIM or whatever, and then you would make whatever name you did and chat with whoever the You had little friends lists and stuff, but it was
I missed all that.
what a
Just didn't have
weird
it.
what a weird era. But it's kind of like Reddit today in a way. You make a screen name and you just start chatting on threads of different, it's not that much different. But the big difference I think was a dial-up internet because you could get knocked off the internet, and that was such a hassle. When that evolved, it was huge.
Yeah. No, that was referring to the podcast that we listened to. They were talking about how there was a son of a pastor who loved playing PC games, and the pastor would miss phone calls at night saying like, "Hey, someone passed away, we need you," because they're busy playing computer games. Yeah.
Oh gosh. So, what a crazy evolution of the platforms around that time. And
then our next generation is when they start making it what it is.
wait, before you're trying to get to PS3 and Xbox 360.
Sure am.
Yeah. Hold on. Wait a second. And wait, was that the Wii generation too, right? Wii.
And then that's when that was Nintendo's edition. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we get there, we have to talk about, you started to mention this a little bit, but we went from the TV that you had in your mom's house in the basement. That TV was, it was the size of two modern fridges put together.
It was furniture. It's like the first radio. The first radios were furniture.
And now it's you have this super thin little screen that weighs 20 pounds.
Yeah. I still remember in college having one of those big giant CRT TVs that I don't even think it was here. I don't know what types of TVs are, but at the crappy apartment that Taylor and I had when it was the same one that I had in my mom's, there was just that big giant box, and the previous owners just left it because they didn't want to move it. And every once in a while, the image would get off, and the solution was literally to walk up and just whap the side of it, and that would straighten the lens out.
So
the technical tap.
That's it. Gosh.
I wonder if it's still there.
So, somehow, given the fact people don't move their furniture, probably. So, given monitors and TVs shrinking, that was big because it allowed us to have portability. We could, bring them over to each other's houses and play that way. We could have them in multiple rooms, like you were saying.
We didn't even talk about handhelds.
And then handhelds
might have to be its own. Might have
when
to be
was
its
Game
own
Boy?
thing.
Yeah, we have to hit the Game Boy really quick. Game Boy. Greg's like, listen, this is too big of a conversation.
This is a pretty big one. Game Boy and Tetris.
Game Boy release date. Gosh, we missed the handheld timeline, but that was around 1989. Okay. But when was the Game Boy Advance?
Game Boy Color next.
Oh, sorry.
And the Advance.
Game Boy Color. Stop skipping there. Release date.
And the Pokemon boom.
Wow, 98. Dude, this was crazy. This was the Pokemon boom. This was when we would start bringing these into school, and then that would get very upset.
I remember being at daycare, and we'd have to have a 15 or 20 minute rotation on using the one Game Boy of the daycare.
Yeah.
You'd sneak it out to the pool when you go to the pool, and can't play it because the sun's out.
You can't play because the sun's out. That's so good. Or at night, you had to get that special little light that you would.
Yeah, or on the car rides. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so when was the Game Boy Advance? Release date.
Look at that Game Boy Advance SP over there.
2001. There it is. This was very... the fact that gaming became a mobile thing like this also... you would take it and you could... If you were on a 6-hour car ride to a big city or to a sports tournament or whatever you're doing.
And you're playing something with the power of an SNES in your pocket, yeah.
You're playing. This was the power of an SNES.
Because I think the color was 16-bit.
Game Boy Color 16-bit. Yep. And NES and Game Boy have 16-bit.
Because now you have
Oh, yeah,
Zelda in
memory
your
spaces.
pocket, Mario, Final Fantasy.
Oops. Now you have with the what? With the phones or Switch?
No, on the Game
Final
Boy.
Fantasy. Oh,
You start getting those
not
games
the
again
old
on
ones,
there.
yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh. So was this the beginning of throwing a Pokeball around 2000, like 1998?
I think there was one on the original Game Boy, but like the color, I think, is the big boom. And then you started having that, yellow, red. Pokemon Yellow and Red being the first big ones.
Yellow and red, yep.
And kind of starting it off. But
Right.
yeah.
But this was the birth of throwing a Pokeball and catching a Pokemon, which,
As far as I know, maybe it was in some other format in Japan or something.
but the very fact that phenomenon that even exists, you have levels of Pokeballs and you have levels of Pokemon, and you throw the Pokeball.
Go to the training gym.
The training gym. Was this maybe this was the origin of battle music? I don't know. Poke battles? Was battle music?
Turn-based. You can name your Pokemon.
Do, 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 do.
Freaking walking through tall grass and
Yep.
getting into darn fights.
Yep. Naming your Pokemon, true. Rare candies. So fun.
Got to catch them all.
Gotta catch them all. Next handheld is that when the PS Revolution?
When the Doom
handheld?
PSP came out.
Dude, when was the PSP release date?
Oh, I love that thing.
PSP 2004.
I
and then
remember
in
sneaking
America,
that into
2005.
middle school.
That thing was a beast.
On those UMD discs.
Yep. Wow. So powerful, but they didn't wait. Who did not have one then? Oh, Microsoft.
Yeah, they skipped the handheld
Okay.
market.
So only handheld. Nintendo and Sony were the main handhelds,
Yeah.
and phones.
Yeah,
they
phones are now becoming handhelds around that time, but yeah, it's just the PSP couldn't compete. Awesome technology between the PSP and the PS Vita.
Wait, what was that? That was the PS Vita.
That thing was cool. It just couldn't get the support, couldn't sell.
God, that was such a beautiful handheld. Yeah. It's crazy because Switch basically did that.
Yeah.
Switch literally did the PS Vita with a docking station to a TV
Yeah.
and controllers that are what are they called? The removable.
Oh, yeah, that had never moved.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, Nintendo, that's the Switch Revolution, which is funny to call it that since it was supposed to be the Nintendo Revolution. Maybe that was the Wii. But yeah.
Okay, now we're on your generation. What are we? Is that the seventh or sixth? Seventh? Seventh generation? Seventh generation consoles. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Nintendo Wii. Okay, let's go do it. Xbox 360 release date
2005.
2005. PlayStation 3 2006, and where's my Nintendo Wii? Nintendo Wii 2006.
So yeah, Wii took its time.
So this was a huge jump again. Well, I don't know. I mean, it was a huge jump, probably because this was the Call of Duty.
We're getting close. Yeah, online has become a
right.
thing. They're all online. Make indie games that don't even come out on disc. They could just be stored on the system. But yeah, this is everyone saw Halo 2, I think, and realized we need something like that.
Online.
This is the era of the Halo killer for PlayStation, trying to find that competitor.
Oh, right.
If you remember, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, this was the big one.
So, also, wasn't this when controllers became wireless?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Gosh, that was, I don't know. That became big for some reason to not be tethered to it. It was
it's hard. You have a giant TV and you have to be connected to a console. It's hard to play it, but yeah.
Right.
And arguably the best controller ever made, Xbox 360 format.
Right. So, okay, so we're saying this is around the time that internet and internet gaming, this was its real real larger scaled explosion. Also on PC also, because I think this was around the time that PCs became totally independent from anything to do with phone. When did that transition happen? When did they get a separate line, right? That was the issue?
Oh, yeah, when it became, like the Wi-Fi and...
When did internet get a separate line from phone, right?
Yeah, when it dial-up end. Or Ethernet.
Early 2000s, having a separate dedicated line. Okay. Because around that time, when that decoupling happened, then you could easily play whatever console or PC game on the internet, but not have that be worried or intertwined with your phone line at all, which was big. But the other nice thing was that you didn't need that much bandwidth either at that time to...
Yeah, I think they weren't the most complex systems online yet, so you just needed to connect. You weren't
right
doing big downloads or anything.
Yes. Because we were still in this era. We were still on... Let's go to the PlayStation 3 one for a sec. So we were still on buying discs.
Yeah, it was the first time I remember downloading whole games. Like, you can just do this, was on the 360, but you could only fit so many. You know, like games are so much tinier back then too. But yeah, I remember being like, I can just do this and have the whole game on here. And now I can't remember what the last disc game I bought was.
Right. Okay, so but what we just said is that's a 20-year gap. So from disc games, the main timeline hump of popularity of disc games to them becoming less popular than discs, because digital is now the higher hump. That's been a 20-year period.
It's just all there.
And we have that here with disclessness.
Remember when careful how you say that. Remember when the PS3 came out and there wasn't rumble pads in they didn't have rumble pads?
In the controller?
It was just this light weird thing because they had the motion controls.
Oh,
and that being such a dumb thing to take those out.
But so they had DualShock. Did they have that?
The DualShock 3, eventually they had to come out with one with... Because I remember playing God of War 2 on the PS3, because there weren't very many PS3 games at launch that were fantastic. And then the first one that I played with Rumble was when Metal Gear Solid 4 came out, and being like, this is a game changer.
Right.
But yeah.
And they had a different... what was that again? I remember what you're talking about, but it was...
The 6-axis.
Oh, that's six axis. That's what it was called. Right. Okay, now we have to bring up our mandatory Wii Sports
And this is when I also flopped to being the Xbox.
This is when you
guy.
what?
It's also when I flopped to being the Xbox guy. But
What do you mean flopped being
well, I
the
went from
Xbox?
the PS2 to the 360 was my. That 360 was my era, my decision.
But why did
And we would have our battles of which one is better.
Right. Gosh, we were it's funny because you mellow out. You there was a whole console argument about is the 360 better than the PS3 or PS3 better than 360, and then we as this weird eccentric controller
You
and
can play tennis.
yeah. And it was great because it just changed what a video game was in
Yeah.
the living
How
room.
you can interact.
Yeah, and then everybody over the years, not everybody, but a lot of people over the years let go of being obsessed about, quote, which console, why Switch is better than the,
Yeah,
PS4
you don't
or
really see
whatever.
the console wars.
The what?
The console wars. People kind of chilled out about that.
People chilled about the console wars, yes. Yes. And that's been nice, really. Yeah. So this is 7 generations, still around 20 years ago. I gotta say though, this was a game changer. I think a lot of parents were kind of blown away by.
It was also cheap,
Yeah,
like when it came out. But yeah,
yeah.
it was also the first time I remember not being able to get a console because it was sold out. Like it sold out
Was
so
the Wii.
fast. Yeah,
Yep.
because it was that one sad, lonely Christmas opening up a gift, and I had 2 Wii games.
But no,
And just to promise that someday.
someday. What do you mean you switched? What were you saying when you flopped?
Oh, that was when I flopped from being the PlayStation. Like my brother and I was the PlayStation 2 owner, and he had the Xbox, and I didn't want to wait for the PS3 to come out, so I bought a 360, and that's been kind of my primary choice since between the consoles.
But then why did you mention that with the Wii?
Oh no, I was just trying to cut that in before we were talking about
Oh.
the Wii.
Okay, the console wars. Yeah. So would we say that this was the time that actually I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this. Would you say that the Last of Us 1, which was 2000 what? Release date? 2000 and no. Oh my gosh. Why can't I?
Was that 2013?
Yeah, I think so. Why am I
You
is
just
this,
searched The Last of Us PS3.
there you go. Thank you. Jeez. There we go. Thank you. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So would you say that 2013, would you say that this was for you the beginning of console games becoming immersive, like really immersive in their stories and their...
No, I always bought into it. Like Knights of the Old Republic. I remember that's the first time I really got immersed into this world and universe and
Okay.
bought into something. But yeah, this is the first time though where these are getting to some of the first times where like the storytelling is now equaling that of other mediums. Because other games had great stories, but the way they told it were limited by the technology. But now we're at the point where it's like this is as engrossing as watching a movie, as watching someone play during this generation.
Okay, so the way that you just distinguished that was you said that you would have buy-in to things like Coder, Knights of the Old Republic. You would have buy-in to its world and its universe. So even 10 years before this.
Yep.
But the difference is that this told a story.
Well,
in
it's
a
like
way.
it was able to like match movies.
Oh, it was able to match
Like,
movies. That's a
'cause-
good way to say it.
Because I'm not going to
Yes.
say that there's like Half-Life 2, was so ahead of its time when it came out in like 2006. And
That's a
that's
good point.
incredible.
Yes.
But like they
That's a
went with
good
the no
point.
cutscenes kind of style. But like we're starting to get into that era where it's like these stories and you're getting like actors to be in them and motion cap and not like the stiff hand animations or the awkward like Skyrim
Right.
like
Right.
I have to turn and face you.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like natural and
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the natural immersiveness to make it seem like it was I guess like you were.
This is when games like became as fun to watch as play.
Wow, it's fun to watch.
Maybe
as play.
is that the way
Yeah.
to put it? Not counting like a competitive, game, which we didn't even get into the Call of Duties yet, but
Right.
or Halo 3, which got sued by a movie company because they said their movie sales were
But you wouldn't use
Hurt by it.
immersion. You wouldn't use immersion as the word for this. What would be the right?
like for
The buy-in, the
maybe it's just immersion is fair. It's when games like started to match and surpass movies in their storytelling and having the
Oh.
ability to affect.
Oh, okay, right. Because what you're saying is that because up until like the mid 2000s and then like say 2010, like we were saying, cinema was using really nice cameras. They were capturing beautiful, real, like humans and action and nature and all kinds of scenes and stories. And so we got used to that like level of cinema.
Yeah.
But then games still, until Coder didn't really have cinema level.
No, well, there's also everything had to be hand animated. You didn't have like the mocap capture. Like they're able to
Yes.
like bring that kind of technology in
Right.
and actors and voice actors. It's not like
Right.
the Ocarina of Time. Hey, listen, are the only like words in English.
This is a great point. So really, mocap and voice acting,
Like bringing proper acting into games.
right? Because for some reason, this kind of sits for me as that moment in a way. Like Last of Us Part 1 kind of sits as that transitionary moment with mocap and voice acting and something that made me I think that's why this other thing that we have written here after immersion is visceral storytelling. Visceral.
Yeah, maybe that's fair.
Yeah. Because it made you feel. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
you weren't
you
getting a
were
lot
there.
of emotions out of games aside from like rage of online. But yeah, you're in there.
You're in there, yeah. The 10 years before that, it was all just rage.
Just rage.
Yeah. In multiplayer rage. Or trolling and all kinds of stuff. But then you get, visceral storytelling. So, and philosophy there, I still have, Coder up pretty high on my I need to get through list. But when you have games like, even in Last of Us Part 2 or even in Mass Effect, etc., there's just the embedding of philosophy into game experiences coupled with visceral storytelling. I think that has a profound ability to change the mind, the way that it like sees the world through a gaming experience. And I think that's sort of when that started to unlock, I guess, in a way.
Maybe more. Yeah, I don't know if I can put in any better term. Yeah, you start to feel like you're living in
Yes.
another world. Yeah.
Yes. And like your choices matter. They impact the universe that you're in. They, you're living in it and feeling the emotion. Like you said, it's like the time when you started to feel the emotions from the immersion of playing.
Games
the
had the
game.
technology now to like tell a story the way that a movie could.
Nice.
Like they just didn't have it before, and
Yep.
now they can match and succeed it.
Yep. So, okay, so this is the best way I think we've put it so far, is that around, let's say, 2010 maybe or so, that video games started to use cinema principles
Yeah.
for realism.
Yeah. Because they had the ability. Yeah. They now have the technical ability to do so.
Yep.
And Naughty Dog being a great company to show it off.
Yep.
Trying to do it with Uncharted 1. Just can't really figure it out. And then Uncharted 2, they blew it out of the water.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Still one of the
And it holds up great. Uncharted 2. Incredible.
greatest games ever made. 2009. One of the greatest games ever made. Holds up unbelievably well. Jeez. So around that time we start seeing that happening, and also games, one of the things that we have on here to talk about is that games have been used also for escape, but in a way that's like you're able to access infinite worlds. We talked about this when we were having dinner.
Oh, like procedural generation things, or
Well, no, but even just not even yet to that AI.
you mean more like the
generation.
Mass Effect, like this is its own world with its own rules, its own history, its own.
I mean that Cambrian explosion thing we were talking about, where there's a game for everyone now.
Oh yeah.
So
that was probably the big thing that the Wii introduced was now you got grandparents playing it and boys and girls playing it in college dorms, and
right.
yeah.
And now you don't have to be, quote, limited to your like city and your house and your friends and your activities, but now you can start exploring worlds and stories and universes, this kind of stuff, as the main player or character in those worlds, universes, stories.
Yeah, it became the technology allowed for games to be much less linear, so you have a world to explore. And
Right.
before it was like PCs were the only things that you could, like those early, like Elder Scrolls, like Morrowind,
Right.
you could play it on Xbox, but so yeah, having that where you're not just being pushed down a hallway.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, this point here, you just mentioned big variety from single player to multiplayer experiences, from linear push down a hallway to an open world and branching stories, also to loops like FIFA or Madden or NBA 2K or Fortnite or Call of Duty or Halo. Just these loops of like team deathmatch or battle royale or one-on-one in Rocket League or whatever. Like, so there's loops, or what would you call those? They're like 15-minute experiences that are.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to put it, I guess, like a loop.
Right.
A gameplay loop, like
A gameplay loop. So you have those loops as one experience that people like a flavor or a taste of art or music or food. And then you have like the single player experiences where I like what you said, you're being pushed down a hallway. So it's a single narrative. Everyone plays the exact same story. Like
yeah.
20 million people all play one
And I guess you would say it's with the technology and how we were kind of describing, like you trying to talk about like The Last of Us or like Uncharted 2 as being, or I was comparing as being as good as, if not better than movies, is that with this tech, it went from being pushed down a hallway to now they're roller coaster rides. You're still on a set track, but it's much more thrill and this and buy-in just because the tech is better.
Yep. Nice. Good point. I like that way of putting it. So, but that roller coaster ride again is one that all 20 million people go down that roller coaster ride. And then there's branching narratives, which I think probably did it get popular with like the first and second Baldur's Gate or something like that?
Yeah, I missed those.
I did
'cause
too.
Again, not a PC person, but yeah, I mean like Baldur's Gate 2. Yeah, where you can start like having conversations and like, yeah.
And your choices really mattered with the story evolution.
Yeah, like your
You know?
companion could die.
Companion can die.
But I guess
Yep.
I just don't know enough about it to say how open it is. But yeah.
Because now we can say Baldur's Gate 3, for example, as a pinnacle, let's say, of choice and branching in a way, or Mass Effect series is very pinnacled around
Oblivion
choice.
becoming mainstream.
Oblivion,
and
yep.
Skyrim.
So, okay, so now imagine all 20 million players do not play the same narrative. Now all of a sudden you play a very similar plot or story, but now you can choose elements along the way that drastically affect the outcomes of the... I mean, nothing has really, quote, branched out to something that's more procedurally generated yet, but the fact that you can have how many different endings and, or like Detroit Become Human's probably one of the best branching examples, I would say, because there's just, I don't know, you might have to take 1,000 playthroughs to experience.
Sure. Or Telltale.
You know, Telltale's also great. Yep. Walking Dead series. So, yeah, so that variety is also huge because now, like you said, there's a game for everyone, but also it's because we've made something where you can immerse yourself. Like now let's contrast her with cinema. You sit down and you watch a movie. That experience is its own sort of form of relaxation and all kinds of good stuff. But you're a passive observer of a created piece of art that you're passively observing and immersed into, but as a passive observer. Would you say cinema's still immersive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lights are off. It's the only thing you can see.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So now contrast that with like 2015's video games and now beyond, where now instead of being the passive observer, what do you call it? You're the immersed player.
You have more. Yeah, you have an active role. It allows you to buy in more. Like I think we had talked about how like with scary movies and scary games, there are people that don't find movies scary because they just view it as things happening on screen. But now when you're controlling that person and you are doing it, now it's scary. You know, it's like that because you have that buy-in.
Buy-in. Yep.
I think that was Glenn Schofield talking, the Dead Space guy.
You have buy-in.
Yeah.
Yep. You have buy-in, and the buy-in is in a feedback loop with your action. You act and you're immediately shown the repercussion, or that you give an input and you get an output in an immersive experience, which is so profound because it's a huge mirror to life in a way where, when you say you give an input, which is let's go to the gym and play basketball, right? Before you know it, your output is being at the gym playing basketball. It's very input and output is right there. And a video game is very similar where, you provide an input and what's happening on the screen in your immersive experience is that output.
Yeah, that's why you can live another life or invest in another world.
Yep.
It's becoming too much like our own.
Yeah. Yeah. Buy in. Glenn Schofield from Dead Space, right?
Yeah, I don't remember what his current studio is.
Is it Schofield?
I think he had, it could be
Schofield.
It was like one of those YouTube AMA things he was answering.
Yep. Creator and executive producer of Dead Space. So he's got a quote about buy-in. quote about buy-in.
You just search. I think it's through like Variety. It's like someone. It's one of those channels where like people send questions via Twitter, and someone asked him like, why do I not get scared watching movies, but I do playing games? And he had a great response.
I'm trying to find it, but quote about buy-in in Variety. You said, Lewis?
Yeah, you'd have to find the video. I think.
Oh, it's a video.
It's probably not going to be written anywhere.
Okay, got it. Okay. So would you say this was around the time that also we had a clear kind of break in a way between larger like AAA studios and like more indie, maybe sometime around 2010 or something?
Well, yeah, just with games surpassing movies.
Right, in cost of production.
In cost of production, that's when you really started seeing, like, you know, we joked last time, Burger King's not coming out with a video game in the near future like they did before on the 360 and era. So it's like, yeah, but because of the expense of the games, we've also seen, you know, so much shrinkage and variety, and at least on consoles, speaking as consoles. Just because you can't afford to fail. And then so it's kind of a clear distinction between like the big games and the indie genre, which is, you know, you argue helped or hurt the industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So
you think a bit of both, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to find like those B tier games, like, you know, example of great like B tier game that, you know, this year, you know, Space Marine 2, you know, that's not a big high AAA awesome thing, but you don't see very many games that are that good at that cost range, because you're comparing it to Call of Duty, Madden, whatever FIFA's called now. You know, it costs so much to make those games, and they have to make so much money that it's hard for people to try to evolve or change from that. So that freedom exists still at the indie level, you know.
Yep. So you call that a B? B is the tier between the AAA.
Well, it's technically
indie,
AAA, AA, A, whatever. It's easier to say A and B than it is, but yeah.
Right. But they do have, it's like budgeted at whatever, over 100 million or something, and then like 1 to 10 million, right? Something like that.
Yeah, they still have to come out. You know, the Modern Warfare 3 debacle of last year being a good example of just having the kind of half-butted story mode. But they still got to come out in November, and it's DLC prices a full game. Not to pick on anyone, but...
Right. AAA game development budget nowadays is around $200 million. So speaking of that point that we mentioned earlier,
well, you can even argue
industry,
because it's not, AAA, whatever. It's not saying quality. It's just the money behind it. Because you can argue, Baldur's Gate is a B game. That's, you know, one of a kind game as it came out. So yeah, it's just the money of trying to make those big ones. It's tough.
Right. Didn't weren't we saying Red Dead 2 cost $500 million?
The Red Dead 2, any Rockstar game.
Didn't it cost $500 million? Didn't we say that? It was crazy. No, it couldn't have been that much. Oh yeah, it did. Because the GTA 5 took around 265 million. How long have we been going? 1:30, an hour 30. We've done pretty well. We've gone through almost all of the topics. We only have a couple more.
Might have to speed run them.
All
I
right,
don't know if the bladder will hold out.
Oh, do you need a? You want to go?
Huh?
You want to go pee?
Yes, America.
Yeah, go. Go pee. So, what an epic variety of just advancements that have been made in video games and technology that's allowed us to do this. It's so cool. That has allowed us to play immersive experiences. Like a Cambrian explosion of immersive experiences. You can like immerse yourself in infinite stories. And there's a beautiful mirror of that to reality itself, you know? Immersing yourself in infinite stories. Hugely advanced by technology. Yeah, because you drank so much water from that speck in your...
Just from that.
Yeah.
All right, what are we on?
I just went on a little riff about how powerful technology has been as a driving force of these medium of art, basically, and immersion, and just like your ability to immerse yourself in and play any story, just how cool that is.
I think I'm going to try tonight. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
Yep.
Live the life, one of the worst eras of human history.
Yeah.
Try to immerse myself in there.
That's what I think every time I think of Kingdom Come. I think of one of the worst eras of human history. Jeez. So, okay, we're probably somewhere around 2015 to 2020 where, when is this around the time that we stopped necessarily buying every game that we want to play because we could now access it via memberships? When did Games Pass and PlayStation Plus have games in their catalog and stuff?
Well, Xbox, that was again them kind of leading the charge with Xbox Gold. I think no, it couldn't have been 360 because of the memory, but you start getting the monthly games. Yeah.
Right.
And Game Pass eventually taking over that, because Gold you would just get some free games, and then PlayStation Plus tried to kind of match it, and then Games Pass really blew up. And yeah, now it just turns into a subscription because, yeah, that was really opens the door. It's what's keeping Xbox around, probably the Games Pass.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the fact they have a second console that's slightly less powerful but is significantly cheaper and that allows you to play a tremendous amount of the modern games.
Yeah, best deal in gaming is
Best deal in
Series
gaming.
S and the
Series
Games
S.
Pass.
Yep, Series S and Games Pass. Get in the door. Yeah, I think I told you that the amount of money that I would have paid for the amount of greatest of all time games that I really wanted to play that were all on Xbox Games Pass was somewhere around the equivalent cost of a Series X.
Yeah.
So meaning for $500 of just buying those games and playing them, You can just buy a Series X and then you have access to all of those.
Yeah.
Or Series S even. So this was a powerful change in gaming that now is, in a way, it's sort of become the norm. Is kind of like everybody has to have a either a Games Pass or a PlayStation. You have to have a PlayStation Plus in order to play online.
Think so. I just subscribed to everything, so I can't speak to it. But it was an era where like the PlayStation, was free online, but then they saw how much money Xbox was making, even though PlayStation was vastly outselling it.
Xbox was charging per month for live.
Yeah,
right?
you had to charge.
Right.
Yeah, but it gave you so much more than what was being offered for free on the PlayStation, and then everyone likes subscriptions. So,
oh my gosh, yeah, because those little cards that you would go buy that had Xbox Live.
Yeah,
and you would go and upload your months of Xbox Live.
Yeah, you buy monthly cards. Yeah.
And then PlayStation saw how much money was being made by that, and then packaged
and then they started
to
become the equal of Xbox in terms of how they could handle the store and interface online and communicating with people, and the friends list and all that became much easier.
Much easier, yep. So I think, but on Xbox, you also need to, don't you need to play online a Xbox Pass of some sort?
Yeah, there's the different levels. I mean, I'm not sure, I guess. Since gold isn't really a thing, or isn't a thing anymore.
Yep, to play multiplayer. Yep, so now, unless the game is free to play, though. Okay. Because I think it seems like most has changed to, unless it's free to play, that you have to have a pass of some sort to play multiplayer. But now those passes obviously also come with access to library catalogs and tons of epic games. So that's...
Then on the negative side, now we're getting gosh darn season passes. So not only are you paying monthly for your online pass, and now you have individual games that, if you want to get all the features, also require monthly subscription. So yeah,
we never got into you're speaking of those season passes. We never got into where was that? Right here. Steam got popular around 2003.
Yeah, Valve made the big jump from making games to providing access to them.
Right. So Valve's launch of Steam was a consolidation of PC games into a single launcher, basically. And then publishers could publish on that single launcher. But apparently Steam has been the most loving in some ways of all launchers, and because they have this thing with the 2 hour, you get to play for 2 hours, and if you don't like the game, you can return it and get a full refund.
You're on your own on the PC part. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I just
stuff like this.
Never gone to play on it. So yeah, I just remember attempting to play Half-Life 2 on the family computer. And trying to get it to run and load, and having to have Steam, and our internet was so slow, and the game would just always crash whenever we got to the Ravenwood level. And then one magical day, the PC somehow did it and put me through, and I was able to play the game.
Yep. Yeah, so this was a huge part of from 2003 until now. You could say Steam has been instrumental in PCs. Now, just to be clear, we don't have the topic up here of PC assembly and stuff, but that is one of the the biggest parts of PC gaming, is that you do have to assemble components of your PC that you want to play with based on how much graphical capacity and computational capacity you want, which is a big barrier of entry for most people who just want to buy a console. And you click a button,
plug in and play,
and you click a button and it always works. That's another big difference. There might be an update or something, but it always works. Whereas with PC, you're always tweaking stuff to make it work in the way that you want it to work. And I mean, you do a little bit on console with like fidelity or performance or whatever, but it's nothing still quite like PC with all of its launchers and all of that.
Well, it's Android, Apple. You know, do you want that freedom? Except I guess in this case, the Apple's way maybe not good because PCs are more expensive. But yeah, it's do you want that safety and simplicity, or do you want to do your own thing?
Do your own thing, customizability. One nice thing also is that it kind of takes me back to that thing I was saying 25 years ago, where you would have a computer and it would also work as your internet portal and your business computer and all this kind of stuff. So productivity. So we talked about this a bit, but basically the switch from discs, this was probably around 2017, right? Would be the main switch to digital games. You know, now games are, you know, you download games, and if you have a really fast internet connection, you can download a 100 gig game within an hour, you know, or whatever, or less.
You don't need disk drives.
Oh yeah, there's no disk drives, right? So there's that space. Console wars have kind of switched to disc wars in a way. It's like disc versus diskless is one of the big console wars conversations.
Yeah, I think it's just, yeah, maybe just that fear of losing license somehow.
Yep.
When but I mean, Nintendo's still doing cartridges technically.
They are.
It's like,
yeah.
There's always
but they
a
also
space
have digital
for
downloads, right?
Yes. Yeah. There's always a space for physical media. Probably.
Right. One thing I wanted to mention was non-interoperability, I think, is something that we also experience in like movies, which I think is a little bit strange. When you buy a movie, the digital rights to a movie, like if you buy The Matrix as a movie on Amazon Prime or something, you know, you can't watch it on another platform where you can buy a digital license to The Matrix.
Correct. Yeah.
So, but the same thing's true with video games. If you buy, like I bought Kingdom Come 1 on PS5, but it was 30 FPS, unplayable for me. But then if I wanted to buy another copy on PC to play it at 60 FPS, it's $40 more.
Well,
so
that's part of the beauty of what Xbox tries to do, though, is Xbox Studios coming out for Xbox and PC, and you buy it once and you can play it on.
Yes. Right.
I mean, there's some games you could buy that could be played on an Xbox One, an Xbox Series S or X, and PC. You know, so.
Right.
That's what they're trying.
Right.
They're just so far behind in sales that the other companies aren't motivated to copy that.
So actually, there would have been better to buy Kingdom Come 1 on Xbox, because then I could easily just boot it up.
Well, that's not
on console.
I don't know if that would
computer.
on PC, because it would have to be a Games Pass game or an Xbox made like studio. Like they promise that for their studios. It's not for every game.
Oh, for their studios. So
yeah.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I couldn't buy Call of Duty on Xbox and then just play it on PC, download it for free. But Gears 5, which you don't even have to buy because it's a Games Pass game, if you had bought it like I had done, I could play it on either system.
I can play COD though on.
It's on Games Pass.
Because it's on Games Pass.
Yeah.
But like Kingdom Come would be an example where you couldn't do that. You'd have to buy it.
Yeah,
on
it's a bad
Steam.
example to say Call of Duty because the newest one is a Games Pass game.
Okay.
But yeah, previously.
Right. Other topics are, we had a weird phase with microtransactions that was kind of like plagued gaming a little bit too hard. And there was a lot of pushback.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about that.
It's Greg's so traumatized we can't even talk about it.
Microtransactions and loot boxes.
I love how
it's the quick time events of spending money.
Yep.
Every game had QTs. Ugh.
Right. It's true though. So, esports and competitions, very interesting how that happened. Probably, I don't know. I mean, Super Smash Bros. Melee maybe had some competitions.
Yeah, there was always, before it was even called like esports officially, but yeah, there was always like competitions, Street Fighter,
Right.
Any racing game, fighting game, Mortal Kombat. But yeah, to actually have it like classified to the point where like our public school system in our state has esports teams. So, because I got the email looking for an esports coach at whatever high school, and it's like
An
it's at that
esports coach
level.
at the high school.
Yeah, so
There you go.
it's getting there.
So high schools have esports now, and that means
Colleges, you can get scholarship as an esport athlete.
there you go. An esport athlete. I mean, I gotta say it. The actions per minute that some gamers make are very athletic. They're like
Yeah.
super athletic. The precision of like holding controllers or mice and like clicking all those buttons in perfect.
Watching a pro StarCraft player
Yeah.
versus me, like,
Yeah.
ah,
It's ridiculous. I think it's somewhere around 300 actions per minute or something like that on a pro player. And those competitions also pay a tremendous amount too.
yeah. Well, with like when we talked about when video games became fun to watch and not only just like play, and then the creation of Twitch.
Yep. Right.
Being its own beast aside from just YouTube. Yeah, now there's brand money and having competitions and things that people want to see and watch.
Yep. So now we have so much in the last like years, we've had so much internet bandwidth that you can now play a game, you can stream the game that you're playing. You can also watch a movie at the same time. It's like,
Yeah.
wow. On this point, games have also started to be used as therapies, which I think are really interesting. So you have games that can be used for treating like ADHD that are literally prescribed by doctors, which is very interesting. And, that game helps someone learn how to focus their attention, or all kinds of remedies like this. A lot of people, when you ask them, why do you play games? They say it's very relaxing. It's a meditative experience.
I wish a game would have helped me with my sprained MCL last year.
Yeah. Can
But
you
yeah.
make that,
Please.
please?
But yeah, no, it's finding other applications for them from aside from just pure entertainment.
Yep. So this is a bit on the future stuff. And that's why we were thinking this would probably be 2 hours, which is actually about where we're at right now. But we'll have a whole, on many of the topics that we've talked about, we'll have other episodes where we break down those topics in more detail and get into the nuances of them. Because, for example, this is one of them, which is like the future of games. We're now at 2025. We've made it our 50 years. Hallelujah. 2 hours to talk about 50 years.
And we'll probably actually show games off instead of just us hanging out on the internet and Google.
Oh,
Most people who watch gaming content probably want to see games.
well, it's
Or we could stream like a
well,
game,
yeah,
like
that's
some we're
true. I
doing.
mean, we could always pull, we could always pull up someone playing like Last of
Yeah,
Us
when we get more
gameplay, and we could just pull that up, and you can watch what we're talking about, right? So, you can watch it along with us if you haven't. But one of the reasons why I guess we weren't doing this is because we are kind of assuming that you've played,
Yeah, that's fair too.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, that we're kind of assuming that you've played. If you're clicking into this content, I doubt that you're not familiar with the core games across the 50-year period, let's say.
Yeah, if you made it past 10 minutes,
yeah,
you're probably pretty familiar with this.
Yeah. So, but you were, for example, what you said about Tetris, though, Tetris Effect. I want us to just put that up and play for a little bit. So maybe we will bring up videos and play and stuff along the way. But briefly on the future of gaming. So now we're in 2025. We finally got here. I'm even surprised, to take 2 hours to condense 50 years of games we missed so much.
It was a speed run, yeah.
It was a speed run, but we did a good job covering the bases. But this is where things get a little bit different, I think, because if you can speak to an AI and that AI can make content, I think we've entered into a new era, because it's not just you writing text and getting back text from the AI, but you can write to the AI or speak to the AI, hey, do this action on the internet. The AI can write on the internet, right? But then furthermore in video games is, well, simulate me out a rocky, kind of like Death Stranding, like landscape or something like that. And now all of a sudden we're talking about the AI, like in Unreal Engine, simulating out that environment, and then you speaking to it and tweaking, make it more mountainous, add snow coverage, add 6 NPCs that the player can speak to about different subjects. But what I'm saying is in real time, the AI is basically populating these assets. So anyone can be, Jensen Huang said this too, anyone can be a programmer.
That's the big thing, is it takes the skill out of the, I don't want to say it in like a negative sense, but you don't need the technical ability to do it. So that's what I wonder if, similar to how Hollywood is kind of banded together to make sure that AI isn't used to replace storytellers or writers or things like that. I wonder if the game industry won't have an equivalent, because now you're losing writers, you're losing the artists, you're losing this, that's what I would wonder about.
What's the association in Hollywood that got together for that? Like the Writers Guild?
The Writers Association.
Guild or something, right? Writers Association. So you think in video games we'll have a similar devs, writer rooms, designers, artists, animators, everybody that's involved?
Yeah, would the art department just get annihilated by AI? So, but that could be its own episode, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but it allows a lot of indie talent to potentially surface, which is really interesting.
So it's a big trade-off. So yeah, it's one of those, as the technology increases, it could, kind of just devastate certain markets, if that makes sense. Like everyone being able to create a tablet had too many tablets, and then they all failed, and now it's just basically iPad and dinky little ones, like what I mean? Or like TVs being so expensive when they get to the HD era, and now every TV is HD and they're much more affordable. So it's like, are games swelling with their costs right now? Mm-hmm. And is there going to be like a collapse where it's...
Right. That's cool. I love that. I love that point. It's like we've inflated a game development bubble to $500 million, or even a billion maybe with GTA 6 or whatever. Who the fuck knows? But now, are we collapsing that inflated bubble to an indie developers talking to an AI that in real time builds a game in Unreal that can, sell 10 million units?
Yeah. So that's what I would wonder about.
Right. I like that. That's going to be a really fun subject on the Future of Gaming episode. One of the things we wrote here was the word, I contrasted these two words, slop and meaning. I think really interesting. You've heard the phrase AI slop, right?
I don't know if I have. I don't look into AI that much, honestly.
AI slop is like the way that mainstream culture has addressed when whether you're coding AI to release content as a form of just pure monetization, things like that, like generate me articles or images or whatever video content, but I just want to use that to make me money. I don't really care about,
Sure.
And so people call that like slop. Versus, I wanted to contrast that with meaning, because I think that's really where, in a way, for now, it seems very irreplaceable for now, in a way. I'll say this. If you look at all the procedurally generated writer's room stuff and procedurally generated like art styles and game designs and all this kind of stuff, embedding the meaning into it, I think it requires a deep philosophical and wisdom oriented mind to give a good story. Now, in some years that may change, but that's, I think, where still human, I think, shines a lot for now.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the ability to iterate in art styles is also really cool. Like that you can use AI to iterate different art styles without having to go and hand make everything yourself. So there's benefit to that, but then it obviously gets screwed up with what's the word for it? It's not loot boxes anymore, but it's it's slop basically. It's kind of like, So we won't talk about that anymore too much given the next episodes on it, but nodal development software is also very powerful. The fact that you can just take the development software and have it be a package like a character in the game can just be a node that you tweak the dials of that node for it to appear or talk or interact a different way. So like a character is an asset, or like, Fab, I told you about this big asset library in Unreal Engine. You can just take any, like a house asset, and you can plop that into your environment and customize it how you want, but it's very nodal. It doesn't require that hardcore programming. It's much more nodal and free for artists to flow creatively. So that's just been a huge shift. Like that and all of what AI is going to enable is just going to be a big shift in the next 10 years, and especially next 20 years. VR is going to be, I think, a huge shift in 10, 20 years. And who knows, maybe even some brain-computer interfaces, and then you're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Okay. And surprise. Ready? So, games
and stuff.
Here's our stuff. Our surprise stuff point is that we'll talk for a bit about Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis. I think Greg has the best take on this.
Well, it's just two very different objectives. I know anyone that's watching this is probably tuned in because they definitely wanted to hear a take on
yeah.
on the NBA. But yeah, it's very rare that you have like a generational top 5 talent who's 25 years old
25, yeah.
gets traded before his contract runs out when he was perfectly happy playing for that organization, just because in the summertime he likes to drink beer and put a couple lbs on. In a trade for AD, so it's a very confusing thing. It's one team going for the future and the other team trying to win now. And I love Bill Simmons and ESPN, and it's really it's kind of thing has never happened before. So it's just really cool to see that it happened, and good on them.
This is technically mid-season, isn't it?
Yeah, they're not even at the All-Star break yet.
So we're talking a mid-season top 5 player in NBA trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For another guy who, when he's healthy, is potentially top 5. You don't see all NBA players, so like the people voted by coaches and others as being the best of the best. You don't see all NBA players get traded for each other. It's always like one gets traded, but then he gets a huge package behind it of other players and picks.
Right.
So, yeah, it'd be interesting.
And this was kind of like that, one for one, essentially. There was a little bit more nuance, but
yeah, it'd be like Nintendo trading Mario to Xbox for the Master Chief.
Yeah.
I mean, both are cool, but that Mario, a whole lot more. So, that's our take.
Yeah. This trade was like trading Mario for Master Chief.
Yeah.
That's great. So
I could probably think of a better comparison, but
yeah. One more interesting thing about this, I think, is that is this a way for the Lakers? I'm very surprised, of course, with the Mavericks side of it, but I can understand they probably didn't want to give him $350 million.
Yeah, you have to be on the team that drafted you to get the Supermax. So he's no longer eligible for that. But it's very confusing overall. It's one team attempting to win now in the Mavericks with the roster they have, and the Lakers can't be putting all their hopes and dreams on a 40-year-old
right, but
legend.
But now this is what. So now on the Lakers side of it, it's almost like Luka is wanting to be, let's say, seen. But Lakers want to see Luka as a Kobe or something like that. They want another big
he's global, known. Yeah.
Yeah, like a 10-year. Potentially multi-championship.
It's
push.
The Laker way. Yeah, there's not very many players, of the greatest Lakers of all time. They just, as an independent, club, they're still family owned, even though they're as big as they are. So they don't have all the money in the world, but they always somehow land a top 5 star that they can put their hopes and dreams on, from Shaq to Wilt to Kobe. Heck, they had to trade for Kobe. He's drafted as a Hornet. But they find a way to bring in these guys, and they did it again.
Right. And if things go in the direction of, Laker multi-championship success, this will be seen as one of the most genius.
Yeah, let's see if
moves.
they can build a team around him.
Right.
Because I don't think it's happening this year.
Right. And another thing is if JJ Redick is currently the quote coach.
Yeah, he's there.
But LeBron is like considered also what is he considered technically? Of course he's player, but he's considered captain, but
he's like a player coach.
Player coach, let's say. Okay, player coach.
Like there used to be.
So now are we going to see also Luka's getting looped into this as a way also for LeBron to potentially stay and be more involved in the Lakers organization longer term?
Post-playing career?
I
don't know. He's got so much darn money. I don't see him as someone trying to get into coaching or something. But Yeah, I don't know. He's already got his movie company up and running, pumping out movies. Yeah, I think this is just the first time the Lakers, since LeBron's gotten there, have made a non-LeBron move in getting their future ready. So it'll be cool. I would love nothing more than to see them play really well together. But
Right.
neither of them really do anything off ball. So it'll be someone's got to change. Who's going to do it?
Man, we're going to have more conversations about sports, especially in our quote stuff category. I asked Greg and Nick and Drew, and we were all hanging out about what's the nature of the three-pointers effect in the NBA, and Greg compared that also to the QB sneak.
Tush push, baby.
The tush push.
No, the three-pointer, you can argue, has changed all sports. It's like, why swing a baseball bat and run to first if you can swing it really hard and go home?
Right.
So you saw the three-ball era in baseball, basically, and then football. Well, football's football, but yeah.
Right, the home run. Three somehow made home runs more popular.
Yeah, so batting averages go down, but home runs have
Go up.
skyrocketed. So
yeah, and then maybe we'll also, as we talk about culture, probably one of the things that would be good to talk about is how young people want to own homes.
thing of the past, or is it going to be a subscription service? I have a season pass for my house.
Please, deflating the housing bubble. Young people, give young people homes. Have them be free, creative, playful. All right. So that's our first episode of Games
And stuff.
on the last 50 years in gaming. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the episode.
Yeah. See if we do another one of these babies.
See if we do another one. It's been good.
Try not to die on camera.
Yeah. It's been good getting a flow of this as like a playlist potentially out, of like a podcast series of many playlist, or a podcast series as a playlist of many episodes, and also other potential playlist series of podcast conversations that we're envisioning on the channel. So, and I like how this one, it touches on something very, I think, very profound, which is like that you can play an immersive experience and you can gain some sort of meaningful experience through that. And I think that that's such a unique thing. I think when I mentioned to you, I want video games as the highest form of art, as a conversational topic between us also.
Yeah.
So, yep. Thanks for tuning in. We will see how often and if we'll continue. This has been great. Greg, this is your first stream, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. This is first anything.
Well, Greg teaches and coaches and all kinds of stuff. So he's very good interpersonally, but
I guess not counting, COVID era of trying to teach via Zoom. So I guess technically I streamed then.
There you go. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, this has been a fun bringing Greg outside of his comfort zone in a way. And man, you batted really well. I think you did great. So.
Room for improvement.
Oh, always. Me too. All right. Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear also, how you enjoyed the episode.
Or even ideas on future episodes.
Ideas on future episodes would be good. Greg loves Nateland. I also have tuned in and like it a lot. They do this thing with their community involvement where if you drop fun comments down below, that we can bring them into the podcast, future podcasts. So go ahead and drop fun comments down there, fun conversation topics that you want to hear, and we can pull it up and talk about it.
You might come up with our idea for the and stuff part.
For the and stuff part. Imagine we took 3 of your comments, and then we talked about that during the and stuff part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that, and that's pretty much all she wrote. Thanks for tuning in. Anything else on your end, Greg?
No.
No.
If you watched, thanks.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Much love, everyone. Bye-bye.
Happy gaming.
Oh, yeah. We have a phrase that we like to say. Happy gaming.
Be good.
Be good.